everybody, this is the Wikstrand. So, Jet Li, I was a huge fan of his in the mid to late 90s. I bought a lot of his, older movies on VHS, such as, Shaolin 1 and 2 and 3, the Tai Chi movie, Black Mask, and his best movie, Fist of Legend. But when I heard that he was going to make the jump to Hollywood, I was very excited. I was a little bit, what? He's going to play the villain in Lethal Weapon 4, but I think that was a very good idea actually. Jet Li's very gentle and friendly babyface could easily be turned into something vile and evil, and also because he very rarely spoke, he became a threatening and quite scary villain actually. But after that, my enthusiasm for his Hollywood run quickly turned from enthusiasm to apathy, because he was slotted into a lower mid-card level pretty fast, just as the same as Chow Yun-fat. And the movies that they were in, they weren't as interesting as I hoped they would be, and they weren't taking advantages of how awesome and cool they were. It was only Jackie Chan who really benefited from moving to Hollywood for his brief stunt here. And after the terrible movie Romeo Must Die, they tried something new. And I think that the timing of this was not the best, because I think if this movie would have been made much earlier, like 95, 94 or something like that, they could have made a really good movie. Or if they would have made it today, maybe just not with Jet Li, this movie could have been excellent, because they could have taken advantage of the unique setup for the movie. But here we go. The idea of one Jet Li is fighting another Jet Li and one of them is a bad guy is on paper a great idea. But unfortunately, they would actually have to make them act in English, which was a bad decision. Still, I think it probably was a better idea to do this than what they originally had conceived. The original idea for this movie was actually to have two Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, competing against each other. And the movie would have been called, and I'm not making this up, The Rock Movie, which is about as egotistical as you could ever hope to get. But in this case, we have two Jet Lis fighting each other in a very underwhelming movie with a very underwhelming title. This movie is of course called The One. This movie takes place in a world where there are multiple universes, a multiverse if you will. And there are those who have the ability to jump from one multiverse to another. And there is an agency whose mission it is to try to, stop these people, kind of like the agents from Time Cop. They're called the Multiverse Agency, the MVA. And Delroy Lindo and Jason Statham has been hunting Jude Law for quite some time. Not to be confused with Jude Law. But what has Jude Law done to, make the people from the MVA to, hunt him down easily? A couple of years ago, he was an agent from the MVA, but he accidentally killed one of his own copies during a mission. An absolute no-no in their business. In the process, he discovered that he absorbed his strength, his fighting ability and his stamina and stuff like that, and he became a stronger person. So then he sort of quit the business, and for the past 2 years he has been killing 123 copies of himself over the same amount of multiverses. But they have finally caught him. They're afraid that if he is able to kill the last surviving copy of himself, which is also played by Jet Li, we'll get to him in a second. If he's able to kill him also and become the only surviving copy of Jet Li in these multiverses, the entirety of the multiverse will collapse and all, life will end and stuff like that. So he's about to be executed. But the execution of Jude Law doesn't go according to plan, because he escaped via the classical escape method of mouse hidden in high heel shoe. Well, it's gonna be a first for everything, I guess. And now he escapes and trying to hunt down the last remaining copy of himself, also played by Jet Li, who is a cop working in California. And Gabe, aka Good Guy Jet Li, has sensed that he is changing and transforming, and that he can kick more ass than before, and that he is faster than before. But he attributes this more to, extensive workout and good diets and stuff like that, rather than that there is a copy of him that is stalking him and wants to murder him. And Jude Law has now come to California to kick ass and murder his lost copy, with our two MVA agents in hot pursuit of them. And now one Jet Li is going to fight one Jet Li, and only one may survive, I think. I like the story of this. I like the, universe that they created for themselves. And it could have been a very fascinating story if this would have been anything else than a slightly above mid-card level action movie. Because this movie has some tremendous setbacks to itself. One of the biggest problems this movie has is actually spelled PG-13, which wrecked a whole lot of movies in the 2000s with its bad ratings. The thing is that a good Jet Li movie demands an R rating for it to work. Fighting sequences loses a tremendous part of its intensity because of it, and it is also marred down because of the terrible CGI. When I saw this movie in theaters in 2001, or if it was 2002 when it had premiere in Sweden, I can't quite remember. I thought already back then that these effects are bad. And if I think that the effects were bad in 2001, Lord have mercy how bad they look in, 2022. They are terrible, and they look so fake and so phony, and it makes the movie look very plastic and very fake. That is a huge problem. The hokey dialogue and bad acting doesn't help either. We also have the problem of Jet Li is a pretty good actor as long as he doesn't need to speak, especially if he doesn't have to speak English. English is his second language, and it very rarely works for him. Jet Li is best when he is intense and is going to kick ass and... Oh, First Snow is coming, by the way. He's very bad as Jude Law, this generic villain who just screams that "I'm Jude Law! I am nobody's bitch!" or stuff like that. I can't quite say if he is worse as Jude Law or worse as Gabe, who is this just generic baby face who is just, a good guy who has non-existing chemistry with his girlfriend, and you don't really care whether or not he survives or not. And the fight sequences between the two Jet Lis, they look really cool at first, and then they just, add too much special effects and gaga to the whole thing, so it just becomes a little bit, I would have want something else for this. I like the fact that they have two completely different fighting styles, and they have that attention to details, but that is a small comfort when the rest of the movie is not very interesting. Some of the action sequences are cool, and some of the ideas they have are also really awesome. I wished that Jason Statham and Delroy Lindo could have had bigger roles and meant more in this movie, but Jason Statham is more of a mentor who tries to explain how this world works. He's very different to what you usually assume a movie with Jason Statham would be. It's weird that Jason Statham feels more like an Aaron Eckhart type of a character rather than the classical no-nonsense ass kicker that Jason Statham usually plays. But I guess they needed somebody to fill his shoes. Him and Jet Li would, by the way, make a pretty damn good movie a few years after. It's called War or Rogue, depending on which part of the world you're in. If you are curious to see a good movie with those two, see that one. It's a really good movie, actually. The one isn't a bad movie. It is an okay action movie with some decent action sequences, but the high concept that they don't have the money to pull through a epic blockbuster, which this movie should have been. The movie is a high concept action movie with a mid-concept budget, and it cannot quite measure the idea with the money. And the action sequences aren't so good or so memorable that you remember them afterwards. This is a pretty standard and pretty mundane movie in a sense, but the one isn't a terrible movie, but it has a difficulty level of 10 and an execution level of 5. It should have been the opposite. If you like Jet Li's movies, I think you can find stuff in here that you can get behind, but for the most part, this is a pretty uninteresting movie. I like the ending though. It is a kind of a, ooh, that is a cool ending. I really liked it, even though it, raises a bunch of questions that I don't think I want to know the answer to, because this movie is not, the most intelligent movie. I also wish they could have used more of the maybe, mistaken identity aspect of this movie, which they could have used and sort of used in a sense, but it never really materialized in what they could have done. If you can accept the bad effects, you will have a pretty decent time, but otherwise, I would skip this one. A difficult movie to rate, in a sense, because it is fast-paced and it has an interesting concept, and Jet Li is cool, and his fighting ability is awe-inspiring, but this movie also has hokey dialogue, bad acting, bad effects, and some pretty lame fighting sequences that cannot quite help this movie to gain more than 43 points. I don't think it is a terrible movie, I just think it was an underwhelming movie. It is a movie I actually could see getting a remake that actually could have been quite good. So which one's your favorite Jet Li movie? Comment below, and I'll see you next time for so-and-so reviewing, such and such. Thank you for watching, thank you very much!